Hey guys, I'm Angela and welcome back to Hobby Night. This week, I want to do something a little bit different and talk about some alternative war games in case Games Workshop hasn't really been meeting your needs or you're not super into the systems that they have available. So I've swung by Games of Berkeley and today I'm going to go over 5 alternative war games that I think are pretty cool, have some interesting miniatures, and might be something that you're interested in. It's 1947, and the Great War never ended. In fact, it's grown into a greater global conflict. And in Dust 1947, you will be commanding troops of highly detailed miniatures featuring these alternate history factions in the Great World War, including some US factions, German factions, Japanese, as well as some beautiful mercenary ladies, and you can even play as the eldritch worshipping cultists of the Cthulhu mythos, which is partially why I put it on this list. Dust is an interesting game. It's an alternate history, like I said, and it involves a lot of World War II themed things, but also it throws in a variety of mechs and, one of my favorite things, some cheesecake pinup models, which I absolutely adore. Now, I know this type of pinup model may not be for everybody, but I'm a huge fan of King of Death Monster. I like the anime pinups in that. And these pinups really, well, they're not exactly anime, they're actually a little bit more classic, like 1920s, 1950s, I can't remember now when pinups were super popular, but they're a little bit more of that theming, and I actually really appreciate them. In fact, when I was doing research for this episode, looking into Dust more thoroughly, I actually found on their website a resin model for a character called Angela. Her name is Angela Wolf. She's got a mini skirt and she has a sniper rifle, and I absolutely adore her. When she comes back into stock, I honestly might pick up one of the 3 variations of her because it tickled me so much. I laughed so hard at it. But that is not the main reason I like this game. The other reason I put Dust on this list is because, unlike a lot of war games out there, Dust actually gives you the opportunity to completely skip the hobby portion of the game if you don't necessarily like that side of it. You can actually buy fully painted models for the game that are actually really well done. I do think you still have to assemble them, but they do come pre-painted. And I think that's fascinating because you don't see a lot of war games out there that actually give you the opportunity to skip the hobby side, which isn't always everybody's jam. Now, I don't think I personally would pick up any of these models because I really like painting the miniatures, but I think it's great that Dust gives you that opportunity. So if you're looking for something that is a little bit of an alternate history modern war game, this might be the game for you. Maybe modern warfare isn't your thing and you're wanting something a bit more fantasy. And you might want to look at A Song of Ice and Fire, the tabletop miniature game. Because in this game, you and up to 4 players well, actually you and I guess 3 players, it's up to 4 people, will be controlling the great houses of Westeros, controlling your battlefield units, recruiting his legendary heroes, and vying for control of the Iron Throne. And you can do that with honestly going back to a little bit of an old Warhammer style by using movement trays, which is one of the main reasons I put this game on my list, because despite being into Warhammer when Warhammer Fantasy was a big deal, I didn't actually play it. I never got the experience of pushing around movement trays and actually getting that sort of classic wargaming experience. Well, with A Song of Ice and Fire, I can. Plus, they have some fantastic miniatures, and because the game has been out for quite a while now, they actually have a huge selection of characters from the book series, including a massive variety of the Free Folk, which is probably the faction I would be the most interested in, because not only do you get all of those cool furs and everything, which I absolutely love painting, but you also get to add in a couple of monstrous creatures. They have a giant mammoth, which just looks super cool, and they also get some giants, which are really rad. So I really like the variety that you can get from the Song of Ice and Fire miniatures game. Plus, this gives you an opportunity to say, if you didn't like the way the HBO series ended, or you're just tired of waiting on George R.R. Martin for actually getting his books finished, you can conclude the series yourself and win the Throne of Westeros. In Infinity, you're playing as one of the many factions that has gone out and reached the stars and is vying for control over the human sphere. And one of the reasons that I like Infinity is because not only does it have highly detailed sci-fi miniatures, if you're wanting something a little bit more sci-fi and something a little less grimdark, but it also provides metal miniatures, which you don't really see very often very much anymore, because honestly there's been a domination of resin as well as plastic miniatures throughout there, but Infinity has really stuck to their guns and stuck with some sharp-edged metal miniatures that I actually think are really cool. It's a totally different painting experience to paint a metal miniature and build a metal miniature over the plastic ones. Plus, not only do you get these really cool, unique miniatures, you also get a unique terrain solution that I don't really see a lot of other war games specifically doing well. GW likes to have a lot of big, chunky plastic terrain, whereas Infinity in its starter sets actually provides some really nice quality, double-sided cardboard terrain that you can bring around and carry with you a lot more easily and build up a lot faster. You don't necessarily have to glue them, but I have seen people glue them together, but they do stack super, super well. So actually traveling to a game store with this game and getting playing seems to go a little bit easier than maybe transporting all of that hard plastic from Games Workshop. Now, before I continue on with my list, I want to take a brief pause and talk about terrain a little bit, because we've been focusing on that for a little while on the channel. And if you play Warhammer, you know that you need a lot of terrain. Well, there are plenty of companies, if you're not wanting to specifically pick up the Games Workshop terrain, that you could actually grab some totally usable terrain from. And in particular, I actually really like Monster Scenery. They not only work for war games and allow you to play and build up scenes there, but they also actually work for RPGs as well, which is the same thing for the Terrain Crate. Terrain Crate also has a variety of sets that work for both war games and RPGs, and has a variety of fantasy settings as well as some more industrial sci-fi settings. So if you're playing Warhammer or things like Infinity, you can use that and totally get away with using these scenery pieces instead of the official ones. Moving on from sci-fi to something a little bit more superhero, which I still would say is a little bit sci-fi, but we're going to talk now about Marvel Crisis Protocol, which is probably one of my favorite games on this list that I am the most interested in it. Because in this, you are assembling a team of Marvel heroes or villains to combat against each other in an interactive tabletop environment where you can destroy, throw, and basically annihilate the terrain pieces, which is really cool to me, and it's one of the main reasons that I put it on this list, because not only are there a variety of highly detailed sculpts of all of your favorite Marvel Universe characters from the main comic book line. Actually, they're not really focusing on the MCU specifically, although they do have plenty of characters out that are in the MCU, but it really does focus on the Marvel Comics line, which to me is delightful because I actually went to school to study comic books and learned from a professor that worked for Marvel Comics. He actually was the designer of the Scarlet Spider costume, and he worked on Maximum Carnage. Tom Lyle was a great man. I absolutely loved learning from him. And this game really brings some of the characters that I know him for to life, and that just speaks to me on so many levels. Sorry, I'm getting a little emotional because he was a great professor and he's no longer with us. But let's talk more about this game, because not only do you get those really cool miniatures, but the main reason I put this game on the list is the fact that while I was researching this episode, I learned that the terrain is actually way more interactable in this game than I actually gave it credit for. And you actually can throw it, you can destroy it, you can crash into it, which is really, really cool. And it makes total sense because they're superheroes, right? You've got the Hulk, you've got Spider-Man swinging his web, so of course they're gonna take the terrain and throw stuff around. I almost knocked a box, sorry about that. And actually do that, and that fact that they took that, gave it mechanics in this game and allow you to do that as a player is really, really cool to me. It's definitely one that I'm gonna be checking out. Let me know if you will be too. Stepping from one Disney-owned intellectual property into another, we're now going to look at Star Wars Legion, where you can join the unsung battles of the Galactic Civil War and control troops, vehicles, and heroes from a galaxy far, far away. And let's face it, you guys probably know if you've been watching the channel for a little bit that I have been really getting into Star Wars. In fact, I got so into it that I have in fact already picked up this game, picked up several of the models, and painted at least one of them on camera. And that's one of the main reasons I want to talk about it, because I actually think this game is pretty cool. It's a light skirmish game. You have, if you've played X-Wing or you're familiar with Fantasy Flight's war games, it's going to be very much in that vein. You have movement rulers and you're rolling dice and there's cards and everything. But the thing that I really like about this game is the models. If you want Star Wars models that just look super cool, but you can put your own spin on, this is where you want to go to get those. I myself, like I said, have painted up a Mandalorian and I put a little bit of my own flair on it, but I actually did try to stay in world. And unlike when I'm painting Games Workshop models, I actually felt really inclined to try to stick to that in-world theme and make them feel like they were really part of this universe, which I've just never really experienced before. And it gave me an interesting challenge as a painter, because I actually look at some of these iconic characters like Luke Skywalker or Darth Maul or Cad Bane and actually want to paint them up like their likenesses from the cartoons, which is what really got me into I almost said Warhammer, but I meant Star Wars. Because I really got into Star Wars, Star Wars Rebels and the Clone Wars. And so actually seeing models representing those characters, and they kind of look like their cartoon variations as well, which is really cool to me. Seeing those models and being able to go, cool, you mean I can actually try to do Rex's specific design on his armor and challenge myself with that? That is super exciting to me. So that's one of the main reasons I actually put this game on my list. Plus, Star Wars is huge right now. They're producing great content, and I cannot wait to see stuff from the Bad Batch actually appear in this game, which is probably why I'm focusing on it so much, because there's so much potential right now for Legion. It's been going strong for a while. There's already a great collection of models to choose from whichever time period in Star Wars that you're interested in too, because they have stuff from the Clone Wars and they have stuff from more of Luke and Vader's experiences. So you can really choose which one you want to go for, and it just has a lot of opportunities there. So I'm really into it. Let me know if you are as well. What do you think, Gareth? Do you think that was a good list of 5 alternative war games if you're not really feeling Games Workshop right now? I thought so too. I thought it was a pretty good list. We had some sci-fi games in there, we had some modern historical war games, we had some fantasy, and of course we delved into popular culture with Disney and their Star Wars and Marvel lines. I already have Legion, but I definitely think I'm going to be picking up Marvel Crisis Protocol myself, just because I really, really do love what Disney is doing with the MCU right now. I love seeing these models represented in physical form, and I really want to be able to paint some of them up. But I'm very curious also to know what you guys are interested in seeing me paint on the channel, and what games you might be picking up if you haven't been feeling Games Workshop this for a little while, because I know there's been some controversy with them recently. So tell me all about the games that you're playing down in the comments below. And in the meantime, I wanted to give a huge thank you to my patrons for allowing content like this to continue to be made. You guys are awesome, and if you want to join them, you can find a link in the description below. But I have been Angela, you have been watching Hobby Night, and we'll be back next week for some more news and another hobby video. In fact, we're going to have an extra hobby video this week on Monday where I'll be painting up a commando and a bomb squig.